Hello and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. So happy to be with you on this Tuesday. A little bit different from our usual Tuesday. Usually we'll do an open forum, but it will not be an open forum today. Your calls are welcome. But as we mentioned yesterday, we're going to take some time this week to talk to some of our favorite women, some of the smartest, sharpest, brightest people you are ever going to meet. Because on this anniversary, as we approach the anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision, our thought here is that there is all kinds of falsehoods going to be proposed about what is truly liberating for human beings, about what's truly empowering for women. So we said we're going to do, and I know you loved our guests yesterday because we got so much great feedback on the wonderful guests we had yesterday. So we decided we're going to keep going, and we're going to invite some women in this week. And this hour, we're going to talk about chastity. We'll also open the lines to talk about same-sex attraction and chastity because really chastity is one of the great issues of our time because it is, you know, I suppose in a certain way people look around the world and they go, it's obvious everything's a mess, or maybe not everything, but a lot is a mess. But how often do we make the connection from the fact that a big part of why everything's a mess or so much is a mess is that we're not getting our sexual lives right. We're actually doing wrong. We're doing harm. We're doing harm to relationships between men and women. We're doing harm to the relationships between parents and children. And when you start messing with things on such a fundamental level, you actually do harm society. And so chastity is not a side issue. As a matter of fact, if we've got one thing right, well, I suppose if you got one thing right, if you could get society, you'd say honor God the way that God should be honored. But chastity is part of that as well. So our guest today is a wonderful speaker on these topics, and you are welcome to call with your questions. If you're not a Catholic and you're not sure what are we talking about, and I should be clear about chastity. Chastity doesn't mean celibacy. It's not the same thing, and our guest will explain that. But our number is 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. I remember we had our guest, Kim Zember, on, I think it was probably about this time last year, to talk about chastity, talk about same-sex attraction on our Focus podcast, and she was a superstar. We knew we'd be having her on again. She's the founder of Overcome Ministries, which intends to be an outlet of love and hope for young adults and adults struggling with same-sex attraction and support for the families of those folks. She's the author of a wonderful book from Sophia Institute Press, Restless Heart: My Struggle with Life and Sexuality. Kim Zember, thanks for being back with us.
Super excited to be back.
So do you think I exaggerate when I say that if you could get something right in a society, the thing to get right would be chastity?
I think it's top 5.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It affects family. It affects your personal walk, everything.
Yeah. So maybe you could help us a little bit with what is chastity, because I know people get like, one time I gave a talk to men, and part of the talk had to do with chastity. And then at the break, they were married men. They were like, well, what are you talking about with this chastity thing? Because they thought that in their mind, chastity was the same as celibacy. And I was like,
no sex.
No, that's not what it is. So maybe help us out. What is chastity?
Well, I know chastity for me is a lot in my heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's turning my heart towards the Lord. And when we turn our hearts towards the Lord, we want to honor the Lord as he is, not as we want him to be. And so for me, following his ways is actually honoring him. And so for me, it's not about not having sex. This isn't just a big list of do not do this, do not do that. It's actually for the goodness that he has, and understanding that sexuality was created for reproduction, right? Within the covenant of marriage. And so for me, as a single woman, chastity does look like no sex, but that's a desire of my heart. Right. And that hasn't always been a desire in my heart, but I actually can see the beauty in that now, in really following the ways of the Lord, that trusting that he is good and everything he has put forth is for our good.
888-318-7884, our number. You're welcome to call with your questions, comments for Kim Zember, our guest this hour. So, and this I know is a great part of your ministerial life, your life of sharing Christ with other people and sharing the truth about life with other people. But there is a ton of confusion about sexuality among young people.
Absolutely.
Where does it come from? What can we do about it?
Well, I think it comes from original sin, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, let's just be real. The
Right.
sins of our mothers, fathers, everything are generational. But I think what it comes from, honestly, is keeping our eyes off of God and putting them onto ourselves, our desires. We all have desires, right? Even if they're not same-sex attraction desires, we all have desires. You as a married man might have a desire for another woman. Well, you feel it. Should you go for it, right? Just because you feel it and you desire it doesn't mean that it is innately good.
My wife has explained that to me.
Yeah.
She explained that part of marriage to me. So
Amen. I hope she continues. And so, but in that, I think that's where we've gotten off track is we've let our feelings and our desires become our God instead of God being God of our feelings and our desires, to take every thought captive, every desire captive to the obedience of Christ.
We're told, however, that surrender to desire in a certain way is liberation. That's what we're told.
Well, yeah, that's what we are told. I lived that, and it was anything but liberating.
Yeah.
Sure, I did everything I wanted to, and I can say in a way that was freeing, but it didn't give me freedom. See, there's a difference between being, right, having a freedom, right, that you're living in and experience a moment of freedom, right? I want to live in freedom. I don't want to just have a moment of freedom. And so, yeah, I mean, as I was living out desires that I felt, and they were celebrated by some and not by others, there was a sense of, wow, I'm liberated. But I didn't live in liberation, right?
Right.
And so to me, really, I've only found freedom when there's a surrender to Christ. And that's not just with my sexuality. That's not just with desires. That's with everything. That's with my way of thinking. That's with my words, my actions, all of it. So it's much more than that. And it's a life lived. It's not just a rule book to follow. This is about relationship with Christ.
Kim Zember's our guest. Our number is 888-318-7884. Many people, and we get these calls, I'm sure that people say this to you. Well, the way that you have described chastity, the way that you have described a whole, full human sexuality, that leaves out people who are same-sex attraction.
Well, I'm one of them. So,
okay.
I mean, I don't want to, be...
Right. But you must have heard people say that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, then I'm going to be chaste my whole life. Whenever, beyond society, have you heard that chastity is a bad thing? It's actually a beautiful thing. And so I think the sad part is we don't have enough voices of real people living chaste lives that may not be priests or religious order, that are telling you how beautiful it is. Are there struggles? Absolutely. But I mean, you can attest that you have struggles as a married man, right?
Yes, right.
So see, if we're just looking to escape struggle, then we're trying to escape being human.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. And so in that, yeah, it is difficult. I struggle. But I don't let my temptations rule my life anymore. I don't let my desires be what gauges everything I do.
Right.
And so there's really a huge freedom in that, knowing that I don't have to be a slave to everything I desire and everything I feel. That can even go into food, right? We could take it at a very basic level, or we can take it all the way to sexuality. So my heart does go out for those who have same-sex attraction and are riddled probably with the same thing I was riddled with, which was fear, right? Fear of being alone. Everybody else is going to be married. Everybody else has family.
Right.
I'm going to be that woman with cats, and I don't like cats. And so what does that look like for me?
Well, that makes it worse. You
Well,
don't
it
even like
does.
cats.
Yeah, I know. Just, Job all over again. So, but in that, I think that's part of the problem is I don't think there's that many voices rising up and saying, no, this is beautiful. Yes, there's struggles, but there's even beauty in the struggle. And I am growing rapidly more and more in love with the Lord. And it's an in-love process. This is not just I love the Lord and I'm done. This is growing in relationship with Him, and there's a beauty in that. And I want to be a voice that will talk about the struggle as well, but the beauty is far worth it.
888-318-7884, the number. It does seem to me that there's, as a matter of fact, I know that this is the case because I've talked to many of the journalists who were there. But in the 1970s, at places like Cosmo magazine, there was an intentional and quite deceptive kind of program to convince young women that unchastity was the way to joy and fullness and all that. And I mean quite deceptive in the fact that people who wrote for Cosmo in those days literally made up stories of happy women who were living unchaste lives because they couldn't find real stories. So they just made them up.
Yeah, you're not going to find them.
Right. So I want to ask you in a particular way for women, because this is the time of year when we're going to get the avalanche of stories about how liberating abortion is, how all that. Do you think that for women in particular that there's because I'm having trouble getting to a question because I keep thinking of sight. But for men, I don't think you have to sell them on this so much. But I do think it's sold to women much to their detriment. I just wanted to get your view on that.
Yeah, and to kind of comment onto the first thing about you can't really be happy unless you're unchaste.
Right.
I think we only know what we know, and so it's like you could eat McDonald's every day and think that you're healthy. Until you taste something differently. So for me, I thought I was doing pretty good. I didn't have peace, which is always an indicator as well,
yes.
in my opinion.
Right.
But in that, I think women were being pushed towards, just this women's rights. Well, yeah, you have rights over your own body, and to say no, I don't want to do this, is actually a huge freedom. Right? There's liberation in that, in respecting your own body. I was just reading yesterday in the scripture about that our body is not our own. It's a temple of the Holy Spirit. Now, I know we've heard that so much, but do we really believe it? Because now when I'm giving my body out in whatever way, right, I'm actually giving out the temple of the Holy Spirit, somewhere where God dwells.
Yeah.
And is that honoring and in the way he has done it? So there's a big pressure on women and on men. My heart goes out to men too, that, the more women you sleep with, the more manly you are, all these lies that are being told.
Right.
And it's just the opposite, because a real man can practice self-control, right? And to honor.
Well, Jesus
the women.
showed us that.
Hey, it says he was tempted in every way and never sinned.
Right. Yeah, but we have totally abandoned that idea that self-control is manly. It's the acting. The more animalistic you are, the more manly you are.
Yeah, but again, as we get away from God's ways, that's what's going to happen, and we go towards what society says, and we know that whatever society says is blowing with the wind. One day it's good, one day it's not.
Kim Zember is our guest. She's the author of a memoir available from Sophia Institute Press, in which you're quite frank in your memoir about your own struggles with same-sex attraction, with unchastity, and growing into the freedom that the Lord offered.
Yeah, it's very raw. It cuts right to it. I didn't want to sugarcoat anything, and just so people could know, you know what? Whoa, I'm not alone.
Yeah,
there's somebody else out there who not only struggled, but still struggles in ways.
Yeah, it's called Restless Heart. You can get it. Kim is also the founder of Overcome Ministries. Just Google that, Overcome Ministries. We're going to talk more about chastity as part of our human liberation, as we try to correct many of the falsities secular media will be throwing up this month in celebrating what is probably one of the worst things our country ever did, the Roe versus Wade decision. Be right back with your calls, 888-318-7884, and more conversation with Kim Zember right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Cy Kellett. Don't forget to check out the latest episode of our podcast, Catholic Answers Focus. You can listen each week to the world's premier podcast on Catholic apologetics at CatholicAnswersFocus.com, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Catholic Answers Focus, now available at CatholicAnswersFocus.com.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at youtube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. I'm going to have a great week so far. I'm going to have a great week. Getting to talk to some of the sharpest people in the world who don't have the wool pulled over their eyes. So among those is our guest this hour, Kim Zember, who has a wonderful ministry called Overcome Ministries, which is designed to help young people, in particular young adults, and anybody who's struggling with same-sex attraction, to do so in a way that is consistent with God wants for every single human life, joy and peace and freedom. And you found those things, joy and peace and freedom?
Continuing to,
yeah. Right. It's an ongoing thing. So maybe you could say something about that. I do want people to feel welcome to call who have more general questions about chastity in your own life, in the life of your children, your family. You're welcome to call. If you disagree with us, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. But I want to ask you particularly about ministering to folks who have same-sex attraction. Maybe what are we getting right in the church? What could we do better? And what do you see as the way forward for Christians ministering to folks who face that?
Yeah, I think what we're doing now is a good start to talk about it and to not put this in the corner and be like, oh, you want to talk about homosexuality? Come into the office and we'll talk. Like,
right.
This is one of the sins. This is one of the temptations that many people are faced with. It's not the only one. And it's honestly not even the greatest or the gravest. Nowhere in Scripture does it say this is the worst sin, right?
That's right.
But we do know that sexual immorality, it's mortal, right? It's heavy, and it hits heavy on the person's heart. And I think that's sometimes what we forget. We remember that it's a grave sin, but we forget what grave sin can do to a soul and how much that person is hurting.
Yeah.
Right? How much guilt and shame is probably on them. And so are we coming in the compassion of the Lord? We never leave out the Lord's truth, but are we walking in his compassion, right?
Right.
Are we having empathy for someone who's suffering? Right?
Exactly.
And so I think if we can have if somebody knows, there's a saying, I don't know who coined it, but it's phenomenal. And it goes that most people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
And so I think that when somebody really knows, like, this person cares about me, they're going to open up. They're going to know that they can have a conversation. I was just listening to Father Mike Schmidt's Bible in a Year, and he was talking about sometimes people just need to be heard. Just listen. Can we just be quiet sometimes and even silently pray for the person, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't always have to be. And one way that I've found actually really helpful in my own journey, like my family did, was they shared their own struggles. Yeah, sure. None of them had same-sex attraction, but my brother had struggles. And when he was open and honest with me, it was like, okay. And I would in my mind be like, yeah, but that's not same-sex attraction. You could still get married. You could do this. But it was nice to see, and not in a like mean way, but it was nice to see that I wasn't the only one struggling. And so I think if we can be authentic and transparent with our own struggles, even if they're not identical, and we share like what we do and how we overcome some of these things, are we trying to win someone's soul, or are we trying to win an argument? And if we're going after someone's soul and we want the Lord, then we need to do it in compassion. We need to do it in all truth, but in the love of Christ. And never once was Jesus like, you're the worst, and da-da-da-da, and just at the person.
Right.
He always told them to turn from sin, but he built them up. Can we find the gold in one another? Someone who has same-sex attraction, I hear so many times, I have so many people reach out, and a lot of the opening lines are, my daughter, identifies as a lesbian, or however they phrase it, but she's a really nice person. And I'm like,
wow,
wait a minute, but like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? That's like saying, hey, this guy lied to me, but he's still nice. No, we know that people can be innately good, right?
Right.
And we can be innately bad, and we can make bad decisions, but it doesn't make that person who they are. And I think that's one of the issues we're facing a lot, is most people living in the lifestyle, in homosexual lifestyles, have identified as that is who they are, versus that is something they're doing, right? And so we heard that phrase, and I heard it in my life growing up, and it was not ever comfortable, and it always frustrated me. Love the sinner, hate the sin. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that, but I just feel really gross right now, and it just made me feel bad. Instead, can we love the person and not love what they do? Because it's an action that we're doing. I can have same-sex attraction and never act on it by the grace and mercy of God. And so in that, I think open conversations, right, that aren't just set to be like, you need to go to confession. Well, okay, but how's their heart?
Yeah.
Are they okay? Have you ever just asked, are you okay?
Yeah, right.
Like, we go right to the issues sometimes, and we forget the heart of a person.
Again, 888-318-7884, our number. Kim Zember is our guest. Do you think that the struggles of a person with same-sex attraction, I mean, I think of a lot of young men who we have heard from over the years who, from the time they're maybe 11 years old or something, where they discovered pornography, and they have lived in a horror of shame and thinking they're just the grossest, most horrible thing in the world until they become maybe even a young adult and go, okay, they can start to identify, well, actually, those people who put that on the internet, those people are abusive manipulators. I got manipulated as a child. Does the person with it seems to me that that's virtually the same story as the kid who with the same-sex attraction who struggles with that shame. But is it a different story or is it the same story, do you think?
I surely can't speak for everyone. I'll speak for myself. I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, even with just the desire I had for the same sex, right? The desire for women. I had so much shame and guilt, even when I wasn't acting on it.
Sure, yeah, right.
And I think that is something innate, but it's also how society treats. Why is the LGBT community so rapidly growing? Because they're welcoming people. And so what is happening in the church?
What a great insight, Kim. I'm so sorry to just interrupt you, but that's a brilliant insight. We have to be at least as welcoming as those people that we're saying that we're...
As society.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And that doesn't mean we bend truth.
No.
But are we welcoming? See, we can welcome someone and not welcome sin. We have to be able, as a church and as brothers and sisters, we have to be able to separate sin from the person. It's an action, right? Even for me, someone who struggles with alcoholism, I do not call them an alcoholic. I won't do it. It's something they struggle with.
Right. It's someone who struggles with alcohol. Right. So it's the labeling. But what we're actually, there's a certain way in which not accepting the label is looked at as insulting by many people.
Well, I mean, I don't know that my friend Tom, not a real guy, that struggles with alcoholism would be offended if I'm like, hey, this is Tom, and he's, he struggles with alcoholism versus being like, Tom, this is my friend Tom, the alcoholic.
Yeah,
I mean, so what has happened, in my simple opinion, is that society has celebrated this as good, right? That homosexuality, this is a positive thing. It's who you are instead of a desire you have. And so now they've taken on, because when a group has been so pushed out, right, I would imagine you get to a place where you just celebrate it, right? I mean, look at that with gangsters or whatever it might be. It's kind of a weird term, but, it's celebrated. And because did anybody else come and actually have conversations and talk about this without talking at them? Right. And so I think, and we see in the book of Revelation and all throughout scriptures that what is good will be seen as evil and what is evil will be seen as good. And so there's that twist happening in there as well.
888-318-7884. Our guest is Kim Zember. She is the author of Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality, available now from Sophia Institute Press. She's also the founder of Overcome Ministries, a ministry to young people and young adults with same-sex attraction, and which also provides support for their families. Let me ask you about that while I'm saying it then. Providing support for the families. What is the support for the family? I mean, I in a certain way, I think parents are extremely anxious about a child presenting, with any homosexual, any tendency in that, because it's all wrapped up with all these other parenting things. Like, did I do a good job? Did I mess up? Did I hurt my child? Did I not hurt my child? Also, grandkids, and also, I don't want the kid to suffer, and all these kinds of things. So how do you help parents?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on parents. I hear from a lot, and it makes me sad because I'm seeing these parents that want so badly to love their children, but they don't know what that looks like. And a lot of times I'll say, can we just for a moment take our eyes off of their sexuality? Can you love your child? Yeah. Right? Can you love your child? And then there comes into some questions. Well, what does that look like now? Christmas, and she's dating a girl, and, we get into that. But never to forget that your child is not their sexuality. Your child is your child. They have other qualities, characteristics, other flaws even too. But sometimes we just hone in on sexuality and we lose sight of the person.
We had lots of folks on the line, and I forgot to check the phones. I was having so much fun talking to Kim. I forgot to check the phones. So sorry, Rachel in Minneapolis, watching. Minneapolis is in Minnesota, watching on Facebook Live. Rachel, thanks for your call. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Kim Zember.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's my first time calling in, but I love you guys. So, your show's awesome. So
thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of backstory first. I'm getting married in May to a wonderful Catholic man, and we are trying to have a really wonderful, devout Catholic ceremony for many friends and family. Now, I have a close friend from high school who is currently living with her girlfriend, and I would like to invite both of them because I think it's a great opportunity for her to come. Of course, I don't support the lifestyle that she's living, and I'm a bit worried because my fiance's family is even more devout, or I shouldn't say more devout, but very, very conservative and really wants to keep their kids conservative too. And so I'm wondering, I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of hoping for a bit of reassurance that I'm making the right decision to invite my friend in, or maybe a bit of pushback that this isn't the right setting and that I could be creating scandal in a situation where there doesn't need to be.
Rachel, thank you very, very much for the call. I'm not going to let you answer it because the music is going to start in 3 seconds.
Okay.
So you got to hang on. Can you hang on a minute, Rachel?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, good. The only reason I didn't want Kim to start on an answer and then I had to just interrupt her. So Rachel's getting married, a devout Catholic. She's marrying a devout Catholic man. Should she invite her same-sex attracted friend who's living with her girlfriend? We'll get an answer from our guest, Kim Zember. Your call's welcome, 888-318-7884.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
Why does everyone need to be saved? Does the Bible say we're saved by faith alone and not by works? What does the Catholic Church teach about heaven, hell, and purgatory? In 20 Answers Salvation, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, laying out the beautiful story of how God calls us out of sin, justifies us, makes us holy, and leads us to everlasting life with Him. 20 Answers Salvation is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
To many people, even many Christians, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the Church to make salvation complicated and keep people in fear. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. The Bible supports it, Christians have historically believed in it, and it makes theological sense. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I provide the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a joyful, hopeful reality, not something shadowy and mysterious, but a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Delighted that you're here with us. Thank you, as a matter of fact, for being here with us. A little bit different Tuesday. I know you're used to open forum, but every now and then on a Tuesday or a Thursday, we will do something else. And we thought we definitely want to do something else because we could have Kim Zember, our guest that we have this hour on with us. The second hour, Rose Sweet will be here. And I'm just be straight up with you. We said, you know what? There are some Catholic women who will go on the air and say brilliant things that will challenge the narrative of the culture. And man, does it need to be challenged this month and during Respect Life Month, when it's heartbreaking, but we will see many, many celebrations on probably on the news program that you watch of Roe versus Wade, despite the fact that that is a monumentally inhuman decision. So talk about real liberation, to talk as women who have determined to follow the Lord and to live in His truth and to share with us what they have learned along the way. Kim Zember, among the best of them. She's the founder of Overcome Ministries. She's the author of a book called Restless Heart that you can get from Sophia Institute Press. And she's in the midst of answering Rachel's question. Rachel in Minnesota is getting married in May. a lot of devout Catholics, as a matter of fact, she even used the word conservative coming. She's concerned about inviting her same-sex attracted friend who is currently living with her girlfriend. What do you say?
Well, Rachel, first and foremost, I want to say it's amazing that you care enough to call in and that you care enough to not only do what the Lord says, but also to love your friend right and with the Lord's love. So amen to that. That's a beautiful start. My personal opinion is that, would you invite this person? You're inviting your friend who you love, who is dating a girl, yes, but you're inviting her to the Lord. Like, what a beautiful celebration she can witness, right? And this is an opportunity for Christians, Catholics, to love them, right? That doesn't mean love what they're doing. You can love a person and not love their lifestyle. And so I think you guys possibly have the opportunity to do that. What you may want to do is have some conversations with your family beforehand, right? So that they can begin to pray into how to love your friend well. If you want to maybe look at sending your friend an invitation and doing +1. There's so many times when we send out invitations, we don't know who's going to bring who. And let's be real. Like, are you going to go through the whole list of your wedding guest list and say, wait, are they living together? And we're talking about heterosexual relationships. Are you going to call everyone and be like, are you having premarital sex? Are you living together?
Right.
Do you have a child out of wedlock? So we do that so often to women and men in same-sex attraction, but we kind of draw the line and we stop talking about sin when it comes to heterosexual sin. And so my personal opinion, based on scriptures and based on my own experience personally, is invite her. Add a +1. Who she brings, I pray that you guys can be the love and the reflection of the love of Christ and the truth of Christ, and let them see how Christians really are, not what they think they are.
Rachel, I'd love your response. What do you think?
I am so happy that I called in. It just popped up on my phone on Facebook Live, and I was really happy to click in and hear what was going on. This is a topic that I feel very passionate about as well. And so to hear you talking on it, just thank you for being here. I'm already excited to get your book. Your response was wonderful. I hope the same thing. And for pointing me in this direction, I feel like I'm so ready to take it to prayer and to just invite God into this situation and to have him do with it what he will and to release it to him. So thank you for giving me the confidence to do that.
Amen, sister.
Rachel, how wonderful. I'm so grateful for your call. I mean, conservative Catholic should be the most welcoming person in the world. 100%. A liberal Catholic too. I mean, the more deeply you go into Catholicism, the more welcoming you should be of other people, the less kind of controlling and demanding of other people.
I used to think that more grace meant less truth, and that's just a lie. That is absolutely
Amen,
a lie.
Sister. Amen. Amen. I guess we got anonymous caller next. Anonymous, are you there with us?
Yes.
Go ahead with your question for Kim.
It's a little bit of a question, and it's just a little bit of a statement. I, at a very young age, was attracted to women, and I knew it was wrong. My mother forced marriage on me. I've had 2 kids and a wonderful husband. I ended up meeting a girl in my marriage 15 years into my marriage and had an affair. It was devastating to my marriage, and I don't know how other than God's grace, my husband stood by me. I came out and told my husband what I battled with, and he's been amazing with it.
Wow.
And eventually I even came out and told my family and some very close friends and some people that weren't so close that have tried to smear my name a little bit. But I see how trying to do God's will, trying to live for God, a lot of grace has come from it. A lot of good things have come from it. And every day it's a battle, every day. And I just wonder, because the woman that I had the affair with, I truly loved her. I truly loved her. It was not mistakable. And that's a hard thing to live with, to be away from somebody you love.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like, any advice on that other than what I'm still doing. I never didn't make Sunday Mass. I always stay close to confession. Confession was my rock. Honestly, it's with my rock. Every week I'd go to confession and, I'd just be like, Lord, I'm sorry, here I am again, and then fall again.
Well, Anonymous, you sound like a person carrying a heavy cross. How would you respond, Kim?
Well, first off, I'm sorry. I don't know if you've read the book or not, but I actually had to close my eyes because you kind of just shared what I went through myself. Nothing is ever identical, but you might want to dive into that. Not to sell a book, I could care less. Sophia might like that, but I think it might be a little helpful to see how that played out because I chose differently. I chose to be with her and leave my husband, and so you might want to check that out. But I just want to say to grow in relationship with Christ is going to be your strength. And to love someone, because I know I did love this woman, but see, I loved her how I wanted to love her, not how Christ called me to love her. And that is the issue I faced, was the desires and feelings I had that became physical versus loving her well, which we know love is sacrificial, right? We look at what love is, and it's Christ on the cross. And so for me, I guess advice to you is what I live by myself, even when I have an attraction to another woman and a dear friend. I ask the Lord every day to purify that friendship, to purify my motives, to purify my thoughts. And I give it to him every day. And I don't tire of that because I want to love people as he loves them and as he wants me to love them, not as my flesh desires. And so you can love another woman without it ever turning into sin. You can, but only with the help of Christ. And that's how I'm learning to do it as well. You're not alone in that. It is difficult. But the world will tell you, just go and be happy. But read the book. You'll see I did that, and it led to completely the opposite. So my prayers are with you as well. I pray that Jesus would be your strength. Continue in the sacraments. Absolutely. Grow in relationship with him. Know that he loves you. He is not mad at you. He is for you. He is not against you. And that he can be your strength. Paul would boast in his weakness, for there he was made strong. God is always strong, but he wants to reveal his strength through our weakness. So you just continue to be humble in heart and real with the Lord and watch him be your strength. And you have a beautiful testimony already. Stay yoked to the Lord, and it will continue.
Anonymous, thank you so much for that call. Our number is 888-318-7884. If you'd like to call, we would love to take your call. Kim Zember is our guest. The name of the book that she was just mentioning, I don't mind selling books, Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality at Sophia Institute Press. And she is also the founder of Overcome Ministries, which is an outlet for love and hope for young people and adults struggling with same-sex attraction and their families. Let's go to line 3. That's Mark in Amsterdam, New York. Thanks, Nick. Mark, you there with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Mark.
Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to.
Okay, well, I love the show. I always listen to it. But I have to disagree with her advice to Rachel, just because Rachel said the future husband's family with kids coming. So my thing is this. Let's show her, of course, we want to show her the Catholic love. Everyone's welcome. Absolutely. But the thing is this, is with children present, children are very impressionable. So let's just say her friend does come with her girlfriend, and they're holding hands. Well, okay, let's switch that. So let's say her girlfriend was actually, let's say it was a boy, and she invited another boy, and they're holding hands. How do you explain that to the kids?
Okay, Mark, let's get it. First of all, let's get an answer to that. So I don't know if you heard all that very clearly.
I did.
Okay, because it was hard for me to hear it. But
I got you, Mark.
Okay, so how are you going to deal with kids coming to Rachel's wedding?
Well, Mark, I think what you're bringing up is a great point. And I'm glad that you called in and addressed it so we can unpack it a little bit more. So in that's a great, wow, what if my kids see two women holding hands at this wedding, this Catholic wedding, right? This is a beautiful opportunity to teach your children, right? This is a beautiful opportunity to teach your children what is right in God's eyes and what is not, and how to love someone who is not walking in God's way. Right? So it doesn't mean you celebrate it. I mean, our kids, now I don't have any of my own, but I have a lot of nephews, and they see a lot of things, even when I take them to the grocery store. And those are opportunities for me to teach the faith in a practical, real way. Right? That doesn't mean you just ignore it. No, talk to them, even if maybe they don't see it. Hey, honey, do you see those two women over there? And to talk to them in love and in truth in that. And I really believe that if we don't do that, we're missing a beautiful opportunity. Because guess what? When they go to school and they see Katie and Samantha holding hands, they're going to tell them about what that means instead of taking that opportunity where you now are with them and can tell them from a young age what that is without putting it in their face, right? This is just allowing things to happen and using it for a teaching moment of love and compassion and truth.
What do you think, Mark?
Okay, great. I'm glad you let me respond. I think that in a grocery store, in the mall, something like that is wonderful. It's a great opportunity. I think something as sacred as matrimony in a cathedral, I think that, honestly, and I don't want to seem like a prude, but I would say that is, I would feel uncomfortable. I just don't feel that's the proper place because it's such a sacred, in front of the Eucharist, all that. I just think, honestly, it would be a farce to me. It would show the children, look, you could be. I just think it's poor representation. I mean, my point is this, and I'm just going to really quickly say, my daughter does things, and she's going to be 24 in March, but she says things and she does things that I completely disagree with, like tattoos and piercings. I get upset because she knows how I am. I'm a prude, and she even did the same-sex thing. I told her how I am, but she knows, even if she does get a girlfriend, she knows that there's no way how I am, I could never accept her kissing that girl.
Okay, Mark, I want to get, because I mean, I kind of, as a father, okay, the more tattoos and piercings you see, you're like, oh, at what point are these kids going to be like completely pierced up and all that kind of stuff? And then, I get, parents are, that's how we are. We want the precious little child to be but Mark's saying his daughter has expressed some same-sex attraction, and he wouldn't be able to handle it if his daughter was kissing another woman in his presence. So there's quite a few things going on here. So I want to get your response.
Well, Mark, it sounds like you're a father who loves your daughter, and you're concerned about her and about the church and all of that. And so I applaud that. I think that's a great thing. And I support that. And I think having a conversation is really helpful in this for everybody to grow. So in that, I think, as a father, the beauty is it's not for you to handle. It's for the Lord to handle and to continue to surrender, right? Abraham and Isaac, to constantly surrender your children back to the Lord and to pray for them, right? You know that you've done the best you could and you're still doing to teach them the love and the truth of the Lord. And then there comes a point, my mom had to hit it of like, whoa, this actually is not my burden. This is not for me. I'm going to pray for her. I'm going to stand in the truth. I'm going to love her. I'm not going to love everything she's doing, right? Whether it be piercings, tattoos, or sexuality issues. So Mark, I would encourage you as a daughter, right, to continue to pray for your daughter, to love the good things and the things that are worth celebrating about her, to pray for the things that aren't the best and that are sinful, and to trust that God is at work, that God cares more than even you do. As a loving father, he cares more than even you do about her choices and her lifestyle, just as much as he cares about mine as well, and that he is working in her life. And sometimes when we stand only on these topics, we can actually push the person away, which can push away a relationship. And Satan wants that. God does not want that. So I'm not saying to just accept whatever she's doing. It sounds like you know truth. The church's teachings. That's beautiful. And so pray for her, celebrate the good in her, draw the gold out in her, and continue to pray for her. Mark.
We got to take a quick break. Thanks, Mark. I really do appreciate your call, your frankness in disagreeing. Those always make great opportunities for us, and I hope you'll call again.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
He is honored by the Church as a saint with the title of the Seraphic Doctor.
Matthew Bunson and the Doctors of the Church.
One of the greatest theologians and Franciscan mystics in church history, Bonaventure also wrote a biography of St. Francis that was commissioned by the Franciscans themselves. It took a saint and true mystic to understand a true saint and mystic. He died in 1274.
For more about the Doctors of the Church, visit doctorsofthechurch.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Kim Zember is our guest. You can get her book from Sophia Institute Press. It's called Restless Heart. Oh, now you're going to have to help me with the subtitle.
My struggle with life and sexuality. It sounds better
Right.
coming from me than you anyways.
Really?
I mean, that part, yeah.
Well, I'm human. I have a struggle with life and
That's true.
sexuality.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I just want to be taken seriously. 888-3187-884 is the number. Actually, there's a whole bunch of people on the line, though, so I'm going to stop fooling around. We'll go right back to Rita in Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio. Rita, thank you so much for the call. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Kim Zember.
Thank you for taking my call. I was just wondering what Kim would say in regard to attending a daughter's wedding who would be homosexual. My daughter came out a couple of years ago as being gay. She was just recently engaged to her partner, and I'm sure that the next step would be marriage. And as her Catholic mother, I feel like in conscience I wouldn't be able to attend because it would be not a true marriage. And it would certainly not be sacramental.
So you want to know what Kim would do?
Yeah.
Okay, Kim.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's be very clear. God gives us free will. So you can do whatever you want. Now, what we are called to do is going to be different, right? And so I actually had this with my own mom. I said, Mom, if I ever marry one of my girlfriends, are you going to come to the wedding? And she said, I love you. You are flesh of my flesh. And no, I cannot, because I love you. Because I care about your soul, because I care about your soul more than your smile. And so in that, Rita, it is incredibly difficult. It's not something I would deal with when you just get a wedding invitation. I would continue to pray for your daughter, as I said, the caller before. But yeah, we now look at something that we're faced with as Christians. Who am I serving, right? Are we going to serve our children, or are we going to serve the Lord and follow his ways or the ways of the world? And the reality is, I think a great question that you can sit with instead of me just answering the question is, would Jesus attend a same-sex wedding? And the thing is, he celebrates people, but does he celebrate, right, sin? And so we know that a same-sex marriage, quote unquote, a union, is not what the Lord has called. He calls marriage between a man and a woman. And so does God celebrate your daughter? Absolutely. Does he celebrate your daughter's partner? Absolutely. But does he celebrate what they're doing in that relationship? The answer would be no. We don't determine what sin is. God does. And so we look back not only at the teachings of the church and the reference to the scriptures, and we know that same-sex action is a sin. And so as a mother, I don't think whether it be, the same-sex union or your son who might be doing drugs or having premarital sex, I don't think you'd celebrate either of those things. So why would you celebrate and condone your daughter marrying another woman?
Rita, what do you think?
I appreciate the validation. When she called me to tell me that she was engaged, I told her, I said, I can't celebrate this occasion with you. I said, I absolutely love you. I love your partner. I support you each individually, but I can't support you as a couple. It just goes against, living the homosexual lifestyle goes against, the Catholic teaching, goes against natural law. It's against the Catechism of the Catholic Church.
Rita, we're going to just have you come in and do the show one day.
Yeah.
You know all this stuff already. Why?
You don't need to hear from me.
But you do have a little bit of a crackly connection, so I'm gonna let you go, Rita, so I can get on to other folks. But thank you, and God bless you. Thank you so much for the call. Let's go to Kevin in New York, watching on YouTube Live. Kevin, go ahead with your question for our guest, Kim Zember. Oh no, Kevin. All right, I guess we're going to Oklahoma City. Cynthia in Oklahoma City, listening on Oklahoma Catholic Radio. You're going to have to be a little bit quick with your question, Cynthia. I just noticed we're getting near the end.
Thank you for taking my call. I have two separate friends who are both same-sex attracted, who have each recently gotten married civilly to each other or to their own partners. And of course, everybody posts up their wedding pictures on Facebook, and I care about my friends. I love them, and I don't want them to feel like it's radio silence. But as a practicing Catholic, I'm conflicted because I feel that if I were to congratulate them openly on social media, that I would be, in essence, condoning that behavior. But I also I don't want to be silent because I don't want them to feel that I am ignoring them.
Yeah.
And
you don't want to feel it. What's that called when you
conflicted?
No. There's a thing on social media when you ghost somebody. Yeah, you don't want them to think you're ghosting them. All right, Cynthia, thanks. You too have a little bit of a click in your phone, however. So but we'll get an answer from Kim.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What I heard was you have dear friends that are in same-sex unions. They've recently gotten married by the state, and you don't want to condone it, but you also don't want to ghost them. With size words. So in that, Cynthia, amen, that you are conflicted and that you're not just like, hey, you know what, I'm going to just love them and leave completely truth out of it. So I'm happy about that. I'm glad that you can love your friend in the midst of decisions she's making. So in that, with liking pictures, are you really liking it, right? So I would resist doing that for her to feel good, right? Again, focus on her soul, not her smile. She might get a smile when she sees you like it, but now what have you just done and what have you told her soul, right? And so I think this is a soul smile question, as I like to say. Are we for people's souls or are we for people's smiles? If we're for people's smiles, then we got to stay with society. If we're for people's souls, we got to stay with Christ, right? And then we do that in compassion and in love. You can love your friend and not like her picture. You can love your friend and her partner and not celebrate their union, right? And so I think it is just keeping that friendship active, taking her to lunch. I don't know what that looks like for you because I don't know the friendship, but continuing to love her. But please, 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 for your sake, for her sake, and for the world's sake, do not abandon truth. Do not abandon truth. Love and truth, the love of Christ and the truth of Christ always stay yoked together. When we start separating it, we've recreated Christ. We create a counterfeit Christ, and we know a counterfeit Christ saves no souls.
Cynthia, I'm just because of the phone connection, I'm not going to go back with you. I hope that was very helpful to you. Our own Trent Horn wrote a book called Counterfeit Christ, so now you're selling books for Trent Horn.
There you go.
Our guest is Kim Zember. You can get her book, Restless Heart, My Struggle with Life and Sexuality, from Sophia Institute Press. I'm sure you can get it anywhere where good Catholic books are sold. I don't want you to have the impression that I was trying to, when Mark called, I wasn't trying to say that piercing and tattooing is bad. Right. I'm just trying to say, I was trying to sympathize with him as a father. That
absolutely.
We get a little conservative with our own children.
There's a lot of, and conservative is good, right? So sometimes we put all these negative things on it, and I get it, and I can hear his heart for his daughter.
Because I have a tattoo of Ronald McDonald over my heart.
Good.
Yeah, because so much of my heart is made of McDonald's
it makes
now
sense.
That I put a tattoo of Ronald McDonald over my heart. Kim, tell us a little bit more about Overcome Ministries and maybe how people can find you if they're like, this woman is onto it. And I think a lot of people think that when they hear you. So how can they get in touch with you at Overcome Ministries?
Well, I welcome those who think that I'm onto something, and it's only the Lord that we'd be into. But I'm also welcoming those who don't, because I really like to hear what people have to say. And have a conversation, not an argument. But yeah, it exists not because I wanted another ministry, not at all. It was because I didn't have one to go to. I didn't have someone to reach out to when I was struggling and I felt alone. I felt like I was doing it on my own. I felt like a leper, as maybe dramatic as that sounds. It was really what I felt like. And I don't want people to feel that. I don't want to ever celebrate sin, but I want sinners, just as I am, to know that they're not alone and that we are both. What is that saying? That we're just one beggar telling another beggar where there's bread, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's all I want is I struggle as well, right? But I am going towards Christ, and I want as many people to go towards him as well. And so that's why the ministry exists.
I really appreciate you, Kim, too, because as our society keeps changing standards and what's celebrated and what's not celebrated, we want to, it's such a fine line to walk to be as welcoming and joyful and friendly as Jesus himself, but not, as you said, go over that edge where now we're condoning sin or we're being dishonest
watering
with people.
down truth.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to water down what he died for.
Amen. But you are so welcoming and helpful to people. So you got to have, that's, all right, you're going to come back, right?
Amen, yes.
All right, Kim Zember, our guest. You can find her at Overcome Ministries. And next hour, we got Rose Sweet with us. She's got a book about women and happiness, and she's actually going to tell us why so many women are unhappy today. Rose Sweet next on Catholic Answers Live. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. It's starting to feel like cavalcade of stars around here with all these superstar women this week so far. And that cavalcade of stars continues this hour with our good friend, and I do mean our good friend, Rose Sweet. Hi, Rose. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you, Cy. That was very sweet.
Really?
Yes, very sweet.
You are aware that I do not believe that you were named Rose Sweet from birth, that at some point you changed your name to Rose Sweet. Because
no, you know what? God intended me to get holy, and I have to live up to this name, and it's not always easy.
Oh, well, I'm sure it's not. I'm not going to make it easy on you this hour. I know I can be somewhat exasperating for you, but I'm not going to mention sandwiches or anything this hour. Our number, by the way, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Rose is the author of a whole bunch of books. Rose is, of course, as many of you know, an expert on divorce and annulment, and has done a great deal in ministry in that area. As a matter of fact, I was going to say a DVD set, but when you made it, it was a video set, right? Or was it a DVD set at the time? Was it VH? I think I'm going to say.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't VHS, but it was DVD.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Paul, that was rude. She had a DVD set that has been used in parishes all around the country, as a matter of fact, on ministering and helping those who have suffered through divorce. But Rose, you name go ahead and name all the books in the series you're doing right now, because you're doing this really great series, but I don't want to mess it up.
Well, thank you. It's called the Catholic Woman's Guide 2 series, and there are 4 little adorable hardcover books.
Yes.
They're fun and they're light, but there's a lot of meat in them, a lot of spiritual meat. And the first one is A Woman's Guide to Happiness, and we're going to be talking about that today. The second one is A Catholic Woman's Guide to Romance. The one that just came out a couple months ago is A Catholic Woman's Guide to Relationships. And I'm working on the last one now and having so much fun. It's on temperaments, the classic 4 temperaments. So that'll probably be out later this year.
Are you, let me think, phlegmatic is the only one I know. So I'm going to just say, are you phlegmatic?
Oh, are you kidding me? No.
Oh,
You're
okay.
Phlegmatic.
I'm phlegmatic?
You're the easygoing, steady, kind, amiable, loyal, steadfast.
Oh, this is the best guest we've ever had. This is the best guest. Rose, can we do Rose every day?
You're the one that holds the whole world together. Even when everybody at Catholic Answers Live is running around with their heads exploding, you keep everything together. That's the phlegmatic.
So what are you? Which temperament are you?
I'm the opposite. I'm the one that's barking orders and telling you to move faster.
You are that person. What's the name of that one? What is the name of that?
I can't tell you because then I'd have to kill you.
Oh, all right. Rose Sweet is our guest. She's now my favorite guest of all time. 888-318-7884 is the number. So you mentioned that the first book in the Catholic Woman's Guide to series is Happiness. Do you think women are unhappy right now?
Oh, yeah. Not just right now, but pretty much all the time. That is our fallen nature. And you're supposed to ask me, why do you think women are so unhappy?
Why do you think women... See, you are kind of bossy. Why do you think women are so unhappy, Rose?
And see, you're so obedient and amiable. I just love that. We're a good team.
Yeah.
So here's the answer, Cy. We have a software program running in the back of our mind at every minute.
Okay.
It's a list of, if the car will start, I'll be happy. If my jeans will fit, I'll be happy. If the coffee's hot, I'll be happy. If the traffic is light on my way to work, I'll be happy. If I get there and my boss is gone, I'll be happy. If the clients are, all happy, I'll be happy. If my husband does everything that he says, I'll be happy. If my kids do everything, I'll be happy. If my hair turns out today the way I want it, I'll be happy. If Father gives a good homily today at Mass, I'll be happy. So it's constant. This list is huge. We have predetermined how the whole world should be so that we'll be happy. And when things don't go our way, we go through, okay, how can I fix it? How can I adjust it? How can I pressure him? How can I pressure her? What can I do to get it back to where I can be happy? That's why I wrote this first book on happiness, because the desire for happiness is so basic and so huge. It's really what controls us all day long. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think that's even Aristotle would say that that the human being is that creature that's constantly looking for what will make them happy, and I mean, and then Augustine said we never get it until we get God. But yeah, I would agree with that. Although I don't recognize the script part. You're saying that women have a script that men might, because I'm thinking, well, what makes me happy? And I'm like, if the Celtics win, I'm happy. If my wife's happy, I'm happy. I want those two things, the Celtics to win and my wife to be happy.
Okay, and then if your wife isn't happy and they lose, what are you going to do?
I usually find something good to eat.
Okay, see? You are adaptable. The phlegmatic adapts to the situation. There you go. I scream and yell and, kill people. So not really.
All right. So what?
The same. Men and women are the same.
Okay.
Really, in that regard.
Okay.
Our lists are different.
Yeah, that's right. Our lists are different. Yes. Right. As a matter of fact, the top of men's list is women, and then everything else comes after that.
So when things don't go our way and we feel that we don't have any control, the reason we fall into happiness that's not just temporary, a temporary disappointment, is because we lack maturity, we lack virtue, we're self-centered, we're afraid to go to the cross, we're afraid of being without, we're afraid of suffering, and ultimately, we don't trust God. We don't trust that He's going to see us through any kind of unhappiness, that He will enlighten us, He will console us, and He will be on that cross with us. And so it all comes back down to our Catholic faith is the one that can feed us and strengthen us and get us back on the happiness train.
888-318-7884 is the number. Rose Sweet is our guest. I have to say, Rose, it strikes me that the young women I know, among the young women I know, and I have two young adult daughters, and so I know their circle, there seems to be some way in which the world it almost seems set up to terrorize young women right now. Like there are young women who are deeply unhappy because of how worried they are about global warming. And so like it's like the world is just adding things to their list, like and not bad things, but it's very intense, like I can't be happy because there's global warming. I can't be happy because I have white privilege. I can't be happy because do you see it seems almost cruel what we're laying on young women. And I say young women because the young men I experience, they might have the same list, but they're playing video games and skating. Like they're zoning out. And it seems
they're escaping.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, it is cruel. Except that cruelty is nothing new. It's maybe it surely is intensified since I was born in the last few decades, and especially now. But God is the answer. Our faith is the answer to that. If we constantly listen to those voices about global warming and all the other things, you better not get married because you'll just end up in divorce and it's not worth it, and
right. all
those horrible burdens that young women and even old women are being fed, we'll fall into despair. And we are. And that's because we've lost our vision of Christ. We've lost our vision of hope and love and light that God has always offered us. But the lights have gone out there, and our heads have been turned. We're looking away from God. We're looking at all these horrible things going on. And somebody needs to snap us out of it.
Yeah, but it's almost like a trap because I think a lot of them feel like if I snap out of it, well, isn't that just another sign of my privilege? Or isn't that a sign that I don't care about, what's happening to Mother Earth? Or so they can't even free themselves from it and go, I'm going to trust in God because there's the pressure there is no, you must be this woke creature.
Well, here's the problem with I must trust in God, and we could kind of go back to the quote you said, that only in God do we find happiness or joy. That's not really true in a certain sense. And don't cut this show off. I know. when your team wins, do you have joy and happiness?
Oh boy, do I. Yeah.
Yeah. When your wife is happy, are you happy?
Yeah.
So it isn't in God alone that we find happiness and joy. We find it in the created world and in our relationships and in the beauty of sunsets and music and cold beer. Those are good joys, but they are what I call joys with a little J. Happiness with a little H. They're little joys. They're lesser forms of happiness that don't last and don't completely satisfy. So if we lose them, we lose our bearing. When we have the highest level of happiness, the highest level of joy, and that's clear in our mind, and we're rooted in that, the little joys can come and go, and we don't lose ourselves. We don't fall into despair. So yes, God alone brings the highest, most enduring, most perfect form of the happiness that we were made for and that we desire. But there's a lot of other good stuff here on the earth that he wants us to enjoy, but not be so attached to. And that's the other big concept in the Catholic principles in spiritual life is attachment. We find these other little H's and little J, joy and happiness things, and we attach fiercely to them. And we make them our God, our center. And then we're terrified, if we lose them or if somebody takes them. So it's all about, and this is what I love about my basic little book on happiness is enjoy these goods, find your happiness every day in your cup of coffee or your nice jeans that fit just right today or whatever it is. But always keep in mind the big picture. This is not our home. You were created by God, for God. He is wooing you. He's calling you. He's loving you. He's equipping you to get through this dark, horrible time and this world, and he's not going to abandon you. And things are going to be tough sometimes. They're going to be worse than tough. They're going to be unfair, and they're going to be evil. But you, with God by your side, can endure. This is the message of our Catholic faith, of our Christian faith. And we're not preaching that. We're not preaching that as much as we should.
Again, our number 888-318-7884. Our guest is Rose Sweet, and you are welcome to call to get in on this conversation any way you would like. 888-318-7884. You most certainly don't have to be a Christian person to call. If you are not, but something about what Rose has said interests you, you are always welcome here. We asked Rose Sweet during this week where we're doing some counter programming. For some of the programming, we have invited brilliant women, faithful Catholic women, to come and talk with us about really those things that do actually bring us genuine happiness when the world, we know as the Roe versus Wade anniversary approaches, the world will be celebrating things that do not make us happy and will be presenting an image of liberation and empowerment that does not liberate or empower anyone. And who better to have on to talk about these things than Rose Sweet? We asked her, Rose, talk about why women are unhappy. And she came here and talked to us about how to be happy. 888-318-7884.
This is Bishop Chad Zielinski from the Diocese of Fairbanks of Northern Alaska, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
How should we pray? The disciples asked our Lord that question, and he gave them the Our Father, or the Lord's Prayer. But he also gave them the liturgy, which is the most privileged form of prayer in the Catholic tradition, especially the holy sacrifice of the Mass. We can pray with the whole Church in the liturgy of the hours or the divine office, and we should also pray in our own private room, our secret chamber, as Jesus says, and then our Father who sees us in secret will reward us.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. One of the consequences of living in a society that is pretty much devoted to lying to us about what it is to be a human being and what are the values by which human beings should live, is that a lot of us are unhappy. A lot of us are struggling, suffering things, upsets, worries, anxieties, depressions, and spiritual confusions that that God doesn't want us to be suffering, and that there are cures for. I'm certainly not saying that everything is cured by right thinking, but I am saying that the more we are led astray by our society, the more we need wise people to help draw us back to those things that truly make us happy. And that's what we're talking about this hour. If you are suffering from unhappiness yourself and you'd like to hear what the Catholic Church has to say about finding happiness, 888-318-7884, our number. Rose Sweet, our guest. Again, the number, 888-318-7884. I guess I can go back to maybe just, I was mentioning the church and our faith, but how does the church play a role in us finding happiness?
Well, the church is our mother. I always love to say that. That's not an old and ancient tradition. That is really the truth. She guides us. She leads us. The Catholic Church has preserved and passed on the truth of God, the truth of Jesus Christ, the truth of why we're here and why we're created, and so we won't get lost. The church protects us from error. She gives us tools, and she even gives us witnesses, saints, living and dead, who are here to guide us and help us. I know a lot of people, especially when I work with people who are divorced and their whole family falls apart, they automatically run to the church, even though they may not have set foot in one for decades, because they know intuitively there's something there. The church has something that's healing and hope-filled. And that's true. And I know you know this. The most important thing the church does for us is she opens the door and says, "Come here. Jesus is here.
Yeah.
He's waiting in the confessional. He wants to hear you. He wants to see you. He wants to love you. He wants to give himself to you in Holy Communion. He wants to pour out his graces on you in the sacrament of the sick. He wants to witness as you marry each other. In all the 7 sacraments, we have these intimate, real encounters with God become man, God become flesh. This is real stuff, and it changes you. And we don't know how, but it does. And there are millions and millions of us who can testify to this. That's good news.
That is good news. 888-318-7884 is our number. You know, when you were saying that, unfortunately, the doors have been closed a lot this year. But just this Saturday, you know, my parish, all the priests go outside on Saturday morning now and hear outdoor confessions. And I'm so grateful to those priests for doing that, because this is one of the, I mean, like you mentioned the sacraments, these are keys to happiness. And it's hard to describe to someone who either doesn't believe in the sacrament of forgiveness or has never experienced it, the happiness that comes when you're done talking to that priest and he absolves you.
There's nothing like it to be able to hear it and feel it, especially when a priest will lay his hands on your head. It's wonderful. You know, we forget, though, that there have been many holy men and women who were deprived of the sacraments, living in faraway countries, no priests, they were in prison. So we can still be happy without the sacramental presence of God. God is beyond, he's available to us beyond the sacraments. I mean, that's the highest and most beautiful, fulfilling experience of him. But he never abandons us. I'll never forget, I heard the story of one man who was a POW, prisoner of war, for 5 years, and he was in this dirt floor. And every day he was beat and tortured, and he barely had any food. And the only company he ever had was a spider in the corner of his cell. And he was bitter and miserable for hate-filled for a long time, but the graces of his baptism, he eventually called out to the Lord. And one day he had a conversion, and he was completely changed in his cell, and he became so intimate and so close to the Lord. It was mind-blowing. And this is the God that we have that says, no, even when the church is closed, I'm here. I see you. I hear you. I love you. I want to make you happy. And I want to add, Cy, God doesn't want us to suffer. That's his ideal will, his perfect will, but he sure allows it.
I've noticed
He
that.
allows us to suffer. He allows us to suffer because through the suffering, he can bring us more intimately close to him and grow us up and change us and bring great good out of suffering. So just today, and I'm not going to name any names, but there was somebody in my life who I'm suffering with. And I think it was grace that made me think, Lord, let me unite this suffering with yours and not be all whiny about it.
Was it assistant producer Marie?
No, it was you. No.
I think it was Marie. I'm not trying to call you out, Marie, but I think no. I'm just kidding. Let's go. Should we go to the phone?
Yeah. Do we have calls?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't do any good to go to the phone if you don't, Rose. I was just gonna. Oh no, we're gonna call people and ask them for questions.
I don't know these things.
888-318-7884, the number. Juan in San Antonio, Texas, listening on the Guadalupe Radio Network. Go ahead. You're first up, Juan. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Rose Sweet.
Hi.
Hi, Juan.
Thank you, Miss Sweet, for speaking with us, and I appreciate you having her on the radio. I was just calling because, I saw that your book is mainly geared towards women, or what you're talking about seems to be geared towards women, but I'm seeming to learn a lot about this too, and it's of interest to me in particular, I guess, because in my last relationship was very serious, lasted about 1 year and 9 months, and I had an interesting time, making my girlfriend happier, like feeling like she was basing a lot of her happiness based on what I did or how I behaved or what I acted on and didn't act on, and we had conversations about it, and kind of we're both very strong Catholics, and I kind of reinforced how it's important to kind of base our happiness on Christ and the church more than our more than just on what people do or what goes right or wrong. And it was a big challenge. But from your perspective, I wanted to ask basically what's the man's role in a woman's life, I guess, and in a partner's life. We were thinking about getting married. Unfortunately, that did not pan out. But what is the man's role in a relationship to the woman in achieving her happiness or helping her be happy?
Okay. All right, Juan. Thank you. Rose?
That's a great question, and we love when you ask those questions. And Juan, let me go back. It was my publisher who insisted, because more women buy these kind of books, that we call it the Catholic Woman's Guide. But really, and Cy can attest to this, what's in the books is for everybody. This is universal longing for happiness, universal longing for healthy relationships. So your role is to read up and learn and understand women as much as you can, and to, as St. Paul said, to the best of your ability to live in peace with a woman. And ultimately, you are to love her as Christ loves the church. Now, those are words, and we know what that means, but that means you're willing to not compromise and to be willing to suffer for her greater good. And that may mean, and I don't know about your relationship, but to love a woman properly and suffer for her greater good may mean to break up with her when the relationship isn't going well or she's trapped in an inappropriate or healthy response pattern. I'll never forget many years ago, after I was divorced and I was panicking and I just needed to find a guy again. And I ran out there and I just wanted to, I went out on a date, and this man, God love him, he goes, "Man, you're beautiful, you're intelligent, you're charming, but you are not ready for a relationship. So call me in about 3 years." And I was crushed, but at the same time, I knew he was right. So loving other people doesn't necessarily mean going all the way to marriage or even remaining friends. And these are some of the hard truths that I've had to learn the hard way too. Authentic love is on a much higher level. Does that make sense, Juan?
Yes, it does. and I think that rang true, I guess, for our relationship. But thank you for kind of giving me that response. I think I had an intuition that might be it, So I might go out and get that book. Yeah, read up.
Oh,
yes, you can get it.
I would love it. I love it. Yes.
The publisher is
Tan
Books, and it's called Catholic Woman's Guide to Happiness. But you should get all of them. Just get the whole set, Juan.
No, get the relationships, get the romance.
Get it all. Yeah, that thing that happened to you, the exact same thing happened to me, except the woman didn't say anything about being beautiful, intelligent, or charming. She just said, "You're not ready for a relationship." Rose Sweet is our guest. 888-318-7884 is our number. Right back.
Bringing you the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
To many people, even many Christians, purgatory is a fantasy, or worse, a wicked lie invented by the church to make salvation complicated and keep people in fear. But I'm here to tell you that purgatory is fact, not fiction. The Bible supports it, Christians have historically believed in it, and it makes theological sense. In my new book, Purgatory is for Real, I provide the evidence and reasoning to help you understand this controversial doctrine and demonstrate how it's actually a joyful, hopeful reality, not something shadowy and mysterious, but a sign of God's love and mercy. To get your copy of Purgatory is for Real, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Bishop Joseph Strickland of Tyler, Texas, is one of the most courageous leaders in the church, known for his outspoken support of unborn life, Orthodox faith and morals, and reforming Catholic institutions. In his groundbreaking new book, Light and Leaven, he offers a forthright perspective on the state of the church today and calls on the lay faithful to meet its challenges boldly. Touching on topics including parish renewal, the centrality of the Eucharist, the need for prayer and silence in a noisy and distracted age, and the battle between good and evil in the church and world, Bishop Strickland's wise insights and evident love for souls will inspire and edify you. To order your copy of Light and Leaven, visit shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. We're talking about women's happiness this hour and only men calling. That's okay, because men are very concerned about helping women to be happy. But if you are a woman, a young woman, middle-aged woman, old woman, still a girl, not quite a woman yet, you're always welcome to call 888-318-7884. All men are also welcome to call. Rose Sweet has a wonderful book called The Catholic Woman's Guide to Happiness. And all this week, we've invited women on to counter-program what the culture has to say about what makes women happy. Rose is an expert on that, I know, because she's super happy. Whenever you're around Rose, you just know that she is happy. That's true, don't you?
Thanks,
you are happy, aren't you?
Yeah, I am very happy.
Took a while, though, right?
Yeah, and you know what? It was because my eyes were on other things first and not on the Lord.
Right.
And that has made all the difference.
888-318-7884. The number up next is Jonathan in New Jersey, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app. Jonathan, go ahead with your question for Rose Sweet.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on the show, and thank you so much for discussing this topic. So my girlfriend suffers from anxiety and depression. She is seeking help from a counselor and has my unconditional support through this journey. She has difficulty trusting in God because she says she cannot see nor hear God anywhere. We are faithful, practicing Catholics. What can I continue to do to help my girlfriend see the beauty of life in the midst of the struggles of life?
God bless you, Jonathan.
Wow, that's a beautiful desire of the heart. You're already halfway there. You have the desire to love her rightly. And that's the thing is encourage her to get help. You can't be her therapist. You can't be her doctor. You can't be her spiritual director, but you can encourage her, live your own life the best you can as a good Catholic man, and hold high standards for yourself, and help to hold high standards for her. And encourage her to go higher the best she can, and to be patient with her and love her, and pray for her, and discern carefully. I've worked with broken marriages and broken families and broken people for so long, and I have been one myself. And here we are back on marriage. The ultimate beautiful holy communion that man and woman can enter into is marriage, but some people are either not ready for it or deeply wounded and are not able to enter into it right now. So please, in addition to praying and loving her, go get some professional help for yourself. I would advise a good spiritual director or a Catholic therapist or coach for you, to make sure that you love her the best you can. And I just love that the men are calling in. This makes my heart glad as a woman.
Jonathan, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I am also, I have my own spiritual director and close friends and family members that I go to about this as well. We are also seeking couples counseling as well, just because it has been a lot that we've been going through. She has come from a very broken family. Her the relationship with her and her parents not the best, mainly because father wasn't there as much, and mother just don't have that good relationship. And so just because of all the things that's been going on, it's just been weighing down on her, and just been very difficult. And then the pandemic doesn't really help much either. But most importantly, I just strive to just guide her to the Lord always, continue to pray for her, as you said, and just striving to be the man that God called me to be for her and for everyone I encounter.
Well, and be of good hope. There are, often in the midst of depression, one of the cruelest things about depression is the sense that it will never end, that it can never end, that and that is not the case. People do recover from depression. Right. And I would just recommend a book to you, Aaron Kheriaty's book, The Catholic Guide to Depression. It is a magnificent and helpful book. And one of the things that I love about being Catholic, Rose, is the holistic approach of Catholicism. Absolutely nothing is left out. If you need medicine, then medicine. If you need treatment, treatment. If you need counseling, counseling. If you need the sacraments, sacraments. If you just need someone to hold your hand, Catholic Church says get somebody to hold your hand. But it's a holistic approach to depression.
That's because God can work through all those things. Exactly.
Jonathan, thank you for being such a fine example, and God bless you in your journey. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Our guest is Rose Sweet. She's in the midst of, she's almost on book number 4 in Catholic Guide series. Catholic Guide to Women's Happiness was the first, and we're talking about happiness right now. The world is making many of us very, very unhappy. I am of the mind particularly that there is a particular cruelty towards young women in the way the world is constructed at the moment. Do you agree with me about that? I mean, it seems to me that
yes,
there's a conspiracy of driving young women mad with you have to do everything, you have to be everything, you have to fix everything, nothing in the world is right, and you're responsible for it. And I don't think that, I know it's very difficult times for young men as well, but it just seems directed at young women. They all have to be fierce. They all have to be superstars. It just seems cruel.
It is cruel, and there's so many layers of what went into that to where we are at this place, and the removal of faith, in the schools and really in some of the churches and in the home, and also the absent father. If there's not a strong man that I can depend on, then how can God be a strong man, strong that I can depend on? If there's not a strong man that I can depend on, then I guess I got to be the man. And that speaks to what you just said. I got to be fierce. I got to be tough. I'm in charge. And I'll never forget how shocked, I don't know, a couple decades ago, I was working with some of Mother Teresa's sisters, and they were telling me about the young women they were working with. And I said, well, every young woman, our dream is to get married. And they go, oh, no. I go, what? These young women don't want to get married at all. They want to have sex, they want to have children, and they want to have money that comes with that. But they don't want the strings, and they don't want the bother of a man who will get drunk or be unfaithful or treat them like dirt. And I was like, boing, 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 boing. Welcome to a brave new world. So that's what we've had for decades, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's getting worse. We've talked young men into being exploitive in their relationships with women, and we've talked women out of being relational at all. Just get out there and be fierce, girl. Well, maybe you could say something about the relationship with Christ then. Women finding happiness in the relationship with Christ.
Well, and at the same time, and this, again, the graces of our baptism, that little flame of hope, that little flame of love is still there. And if we can help somebody, or even if it's us ourselves, go back to that and just fall on your knees and say, Lord, this world is horrible. Where do I go from here? And then wait and be silent and get up and have a Coke or whatever you want to do. But the Lord will speak to you. He will lead you. Somebody will call you. You'll hear something on the radio. Somebody will give you a book. There, little glimmers of hope will come, but you have to want it. And this is my 5 steps, to really being more intimate with Christ is you have to seek him. You have to desire him, and then you have to seek him. And he's already there. But that means you got to start getting all this other stuff out of the way. Like ladies, if you want to find that pair of shoes that you just love and they're at the back of the closet, you're not going to find them until you start pushing aside all the other stuff. And that's what we have to do is turn off the electronics, go in our room by ourselves, get away, get all the clutter out and call out to the Lord. Jesus, I want to know you. I want to feel your presence. I want you. And I don't even know what that means, Lord. But please hear my cry, and he will. That was a complex question, and we can't answer it adequately, but first desire it, then seek it, and call on him, and he will answer.
That I have found to be true, and I the older I get, the more confidence I have in just saying that. You want the Lord? Tell the Lord you want him, and be insistent and persistent, because he does not say no to that.
No, he doesn't, and the words don't matter as much as the desire in your heart, and it could be a frustrating, angry. You can go to him with the stink of your negative emotions, and he still loves you. He still loves you, and he will respond. He might have to wait till you settle down a little bit. That he's had to do that with me. But, when you quiet yourself and take a deep breath, you'll get the answer. And guess what? The Catholic answer. We have the answers. The Catholic Church, we have what everybody wants for happiness. But it's such a hard sell sometimes.
It is a hard sell because there's a lot of other stuff that our attention gets turned to, as you've been saying, Rose. The number's 888-318-7884. Rose Sweet is our guest. We got to take one more break. We'll be right back with more Rose and your calls right after this.
Hello, this is Archbishop Alexander Sample of the Archdiocese of Portland in Oregon. Keep that dial right here on Catholic Answers Live.
St. John Paul II stated that, for the disciple of Christ, evangelization is a duty, an obligation of love. And the Catechism of the Catholic Church states that evangelization is necessary for salvation.
So we know we're called, but how do we do it?
St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. To learn more, contact us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Rose Sweet is our guest, and we're talking about finding happiness. We asked Rose about women finding happiness because she wrote a book called The Catholic Woman's Guide to Happiness, but it turns out it's a trick. The book is for men and women. It's just that men don't buy books. That's actually true. Any publisher will tell you that. If you don't market the book to women, it ain't going to sell.
I know. Oh, well. There's nothing new under the sun, though. I don't think it's any big surprise. So did you have another question that you wanted to ask me?
I did, but I want to get to Anne because I don't want to keep her. Is that all right if I go back to the phone? You feel okay?
Yes.
All right. Anne in Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. You are up next with Rose Sweet. Go ahead with your question.
Well, I was telling the call screener I'm married to a man for over 40 years, and I came from an abusive dad, and so consequently the first part of our marriage, I think Ron just got used to just kind of being able to tell me what to do and what I wanted and what I needed. And he's a take charge kind of person. And so now I'm in a place in my life, I'm in my 60s, and I don't want him telling me what I need anymore. I'm able to say that for myself. And I just don't know how to assert myself and say that to him without him coming down on me. And he does. If I, say, you're being too rough on me, and he doesn't want to hear that. And so I don't know how to change the direction of the conversation to get him to listen.
And I want a clarification before I send it to Rose. Are we talking about physical abuse, or we're talking about a person who comes down in a verbal way on you?
In a verbal way.
Got you. Okay, Rose, can you help Anne?
Sometimes the verbal can be as harmful and painful as the physical. Yeah. Hi, Anne. Well, there are a lot of communication techniques that could help. First, I just wanted to affirm you. Good for you, girl. And I believe you have the natural phlegmatic temperament that marries this hard driving other opposite. And so you're amiable and you go along with things, but you're at a point you've had it. You've taken too much, and that has to stop. The beautiful thing about you is by your nature, you will be calm and steady and persistent in letting him know what you need. And I'm going to give you one little tip that helped me a long time ago. Instead of saying, you're being too rough, and get rid of the word you and use the word I. I feel overwhelmed and not valued and not respected when you talk to me that way. Can you please stop? So now you've done two things. You've said, this is about me, and then you've added what you would like him to do. Can you please stop? Now, when you try to change the dance in a long pattern like this, you're going to get some pushback. But with a good Catholic coach, which is what I do, I help people through these kind of things and how to expect when they come back at you to try to control you again, how to just say, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't talk about it right now. Let's give ourselves 10 minutes, or let's talk about it in the morning. You have to go into a place of your nice, steady, strong control, and you have to have kind of a plan and a method. But there are ways to help you do exactly what you want to do, because what you're doing is calling him to love you. And you can even say that sometimes, honey, I want to feel more love from you, and I want to help you do that because I know you love me and I know you want to love me, right? So that's one little tip. Change the yous to I statements. Does that help?
It does. And I don't know if there's one of your books or if there's something that you could lead me to maybe get more in the practice of that.
Well, you know what? Here, I can't, there's a lot of them, but why don't you email me, rose@rosesweet.com, or just go to my website, rosesweet.com, and use the contact page. Tell me that you were the caller and that you're looking for more books or sources to help you with that, and I will totally send them to you.
Okay, Anne?
Perfect.
Thanks for the call, Anne. It's great to get to speak with you. Wow, that's really cool. And I hope you will reach out to Rose and send her that email. Rose, now everybody's calling, and there's only a short time left, so I'm going to just keep going to the callers.
Okay,
all right. Let's go to Joy in Kansas, watching on YouTube Live. Hi, Joy. You got a question for Rose?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Happy to.
Rose, can you just please speak about girls like me who, grew up without a dad, and then I feel like, I'm strong. I can do this by myself and everything. I have a good relationship with Jesus, so I'm good. But later on, I figured out, I do have father issues because, I don't like having arguments with my husband. It kind of feels like he doesn't love me. We fight even about little things. So.
Thanks, Joy.
Joy, the book I'm writing right now, and there are other books out there on temperaments. It sounds, again, our temperament, it really influences the way we interact with others. And you are strong, but you're strong in your own unique way. And maybe he's more dominant and more assertive. But you can still be strong. And I am the temperament that likes to argue. I like to be right. I like to solve problems. I like to fix everything. And sometimes when I get upset, I'm not really upset at the person. I just have what they call a choleric temperament. But that can shut people like you down. They can feel overwhelmed and bombarded and afraid even. Not that they're weak and pathetic, but it's just too much. So understanding that sometimes can help, understanding temperaments, and then also understanding, like the caller before you, Anne, to say to your husband, I would like to ask you if you could do something for me. I feel this way when you this, and I need a little more of this, and just engage in some dialogue with him. We don't know how to love each other. Let's just face it. And that's the beautiful thing about our Catholic faith is that even if we go to Scripture, we can find instances of Jesus being strong and assertive, but very patient and quiet and gentle as well. So you want to find somebody, a therapist or a coach or a good book that can help you draw on the way that Jesus loved his bride.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry I couldn't give more, Joy.
Well, I feel like for a lot of women, and I'm sure that in many instances, my wife Missy as well, the husband is the problem, or at least presents as the problem. So, do you see what I'm saying? So, don't laugh at me, Rose. So I don't. It does. Do you have a kind of general advice you give to women as far as finding happiness with the husband they have?
Yes. The husband may have some issues and things that are not good that need to change, but ultimately the problem is you and your response. We women and men too, we both need to stop blaming the other person for the unhappiness. And that doesn't mean that they can just continue to hit us or cheat on us or spend all our money. That's another issue. But how we respond, we have to remember we have control over our response. A lot of times nobody's taught us how to do that though. Here's how to set a boundary and then how to enforce it. I mean, that's a basic thing that a lot of people just don't know how to do. You can't talk to me that way, honey. Okay, that's fine to say that to your husband, but what if he still does? Then what do you do? How do you enforce that boundary appropriately? So really the answer to misery and unhappiness for women is pulling back and examining yourself, your own weaknesses, your own strengths, asking for God's grace, and finding someone to teach you new and different ways to get out of those old cycles.
Becky in Oregon, next. I'm just going quickly now because I do want people to get a chance to talk with you, Rose. Becky listening on Mater Day Radio. Becky, go ahead with your question for Rose.
Well, it's not a question, it's just a comment.
Okay.
The only thing that I resist in this whole conversation is the word happiness. I haven't been happy since I was probably about 5 or 6. And it wasn't until I realized that it was just almost an unattainable goal to be that happy way from when I felt as a child. And when I started being contented was the big changing point for me. I was wondering how you felt about that.
That's a great comment, and thank you, Becky. Contented means that you have accepted the reality of something. And so happiness is a fruit of that. Remember, the way we think and the way we see and perceive things can set us up to be happy or unhappy. So I'm really, really happy. I'm beyond content when I get a big paycheck. So contentment is one of the forms of being happy, of accepting reality, of having a joy-filled life, of knowing that heaven is our home and that this doesn't have to be and can't ever be the perfect place. But I love that you brought up the word contentment, because that definitely is a fruit of acceptance and a lubricant to joy and happiness.
What do you think, Becky?
That's a very, very good point. And I understand about the word joy, but the happy, I've just known too many women that fight to gain that. And I just think they're wasting their time and their energy. Now, the word joy, I like that word. The other one I just think
Okay, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because I write about this in my book. In Scripture, there's no difference between the word happiness and joy. It's used interchangeably. And in the Christian world, sometimes we've said happiness is shallow and fleeting and worldly, but joy is of the Lord. In reality, that's setting all the other small beauties and happiness that God wants us to have as something bad. That really, and this is we talked about at the top of the hour. What it really is happiness and joy at lower levels. The ice cream, the cute jeans, whatever, those low levels, they're good, but they can't satisfy on the deep level. And it sounds like you've been saying that women who are looking for happiness on the deep level are looking in the wrong places. It's the highest levels of joy, higher levels of happiness. The higher we go, the closer to God we are. The closer we get to Him, the more enduring our happiness is. And you're right. For many people who've had bad childhoods and bad experiences and have never been authentically loved, the feeling of deep happiness and joy is sometimes unattainable in their mind. And we need to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, Becky, thanks so much for the call. There is kind of an advertiser's version of happiness that I do think that, I remember as a young person finally figuring out that trying to have a great time on New Year's Eve inevitably made New Year's Eve miserable. Do you see what I'm saying? That there's a certain way in which, being. Well, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's talk about this. You didn't have a great New Year's Eve because you tried and somehow it was left you unsatisfied, right?
Right.
I, on the other hand, had the most fabulous New Year's Eve in my life, and I'll never forget it. So it's not the search for happiness. It's how we think and what we're expecting and how we're setting ourselves up. And I think that's what you're saying, Sai, right? That if you blow it, so in other words, I'm going to feel this euphoric, awesome, intense happiness.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. And only deep relationships, only the sacraments, the higher you go, that's where you're going to get that. We're looking for the deep stuff in the shallow pool.
That's it, Rose Sweet. Thank you very much, Rose Sweet. The aptly named Rose Sweet, you can find her at rosesweet.com. Her books are available. She's got a bunch of books, but the ones we've been talking about, the Catholic Woman's Guide to Books, Catholic Woman's Guide to Happiness. Help me out, Rose. Catholic Woman's Guide to
Romance,
Relationship, and the new one. Temperaments. Okay. All available. Well, the last one almost available from Tan Books. Thanks very much, Rose. It's always great to have you.
Love you guys.
And tomorrow, we'll do it all again, God willing, right here, Catholic Answers Live.